Hey guys, it's Ollie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So this week I have a new series for you and it revolves all around different snails of the world. Please be patient with me in this video. I'm trying to learn more scientific names, so I am actually trying to use their scientific names. I'm not going to be good at it, just letting you know. Also, I'm trying this green screen thing. This is not a green screen sheet. This is a blanket in my house. I really hope it works, but if it looks crappy or there's just green back here, forgive me. I also do have notes that I will be referring to over here, so just keep that in mind. If I'm looking over, that's probably what I am doing. And one more disclaimer is that I am not an expert. This is just a hobby of mine. I will have every link down in the description below that I used. All of my sources will be down there, as well as a timestamp. So if you want to come back or just skip a snail completely, like maybe you already know about it, you can go down there and view the chapters. So the series idea is to list and give you guys a little blurb about some of the most unique snails we have on Earth. This one is a collection of 5 of the coolest snails that exist. There's not a limit on this. If you have a snail that you do want me to talk about, do a little blurb about, please comment that down below and I can put that on my list. I am going to kind of try to give them their own subcategories. So one of them is like the most beautiful snails, and this one is, for lack of a better term, the most bad snails. So without any more further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. I really hope you guys like this. So let's kick off the series with a small purple snail that enjoys to eat venomous creatures and lives on a raft of its own making. Meet Janthena janthena, or more commonly known as the violet sea snail or the bubble raft snail. These snails are found in regions of Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, Western Australia, and eastern Tasmania. They are widespread overseas in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans in tropical and subtropical waters. Yes, I said widespread waters and not in the way you're thinking. Now, there are tons of sea snails out there. In fact, they make up most of the snail population. However, most of those can breathe underwater and can at least swim, kind of. These guys can't do that. They cannot swim and they cannot breathe underwater. So what are they doing in the middle of the ocean? The violet sea snail is a member of the group called Pleuston. These guys are organisms that live on the surface of the ocean. And even though it's only 3 or 4 centimeters long, it is the largest organism in this group. So how does it do that? This strange snail accomplishes this lifestyle by creating a raft of its own mucus and air. The first time the snail makes this raft, it does so by using its foot to agitate the water, creating bubbles, which it binds with mucus. If this bubble raft ever breaks apart, the snail will float to the bottom of the ocean and unfortunately drown. This snail spends most of its life drifting on the ocean surface, clinging to this raft upside down, at the mercy of the winds. And you would guess that maybe the snail is solid and pretty tough. Maybe it has better senses than other snails. You would be wrong. These guys have paper-thin shells and are almost completely blind. Its body is also pretty weird if you're just used to garden snails. Its head is extended to form a long cylindrical snout with the mouth opening at its tip. The tentacles are long, about half as long as a snail's foot, and the eyes are tiny and placed at the tentacle's base. Towards the end of its body, the snail has a funnel. From this funnel, they secrete rubber-like bubbles that add on to the rafts as they age. Not only does it have an unusual home life, but it also eats venomous jellyfish, like the blue bottle and the by-the-wind sailor. Violet snails are podontric hermaphrodite. This means that they are born males and slowly develop into females. Fertilization in these snails is internal, however, there is no direct mating. The violet snail broods its young and then sends them directly into the sea. The healthy offspring will be able to build their own rafts, and the unlucky offspring will not. This snail provides inspiration for a large amount of human innovations. Since these snails are sturdy but also lightweight, they can give inspiration for how to better make some packing material or foam flotation devices. So I would say the bubble raft snails are pretty cool. So like we said, the bubble raft snail lives its whole life floating on water. So what about at the bottom of the ocean? Like specifically in extremely hot water? And what if they wore armor? Now hear me out. This is a real creature. Meet Chrysomelon aquifera, more commonly known as the scalyfoot snail or the lava snail. This species is still relatively new to humans and is incredibly unique. It was first reported in 2001, living on hydrothermal vents in the seafloor in heated waters. They quickly gained attention for their very unique and very metal look. I mean metal as pretty cool, but also as in like iron. The dark scales on their foot and on their shell are coated in iron, specifically iron sulfide. This coating also contains magnetite, which does make the snails magnetic. The atmospheric pressure in their environment is crushingly low, but they seem to evolve to it just fine. They can also withstand temperatures up to 750 degrees Fahrenheit. Now back to iron for a minute. The weird thing about the iron is it's not always there. As of the year 2018, there are 3 vents that the snails are known to live on. 1 out of the 3 does not contain iron sulfide, and the snails at that location don't either. This most likely means that the snails are somehow able to actually do this voluntarily. This means that these snails are able to harness these minerals straight from the water surrounding them. And some studies suggest that these snails may have control over it and are doing it on purpose. We guess that they do this as a defense mechanism against the crabs and other snails that predate on them in the wild, but ultimately we're not really sure why, and we're definitely not sure how. And no other animal is known to incorporate iron like this in their skeleton or their exoskeleton. The other interesting thing about these snails is that they don't seem to need to eat. Instead, they have a symbiotic relationship with bacteria in their esophageal gland. These bacteria produce energy for the snail. This also causes the esophageal gland to be 1,000 times larger than that of other snails, in order to house all of the bacteria. But that's not even it. This snail's heart takes up 4% of its entire body volume, which is very high for any animal. The reason they are believed to have such large hearts is to produce oxygen for the bacteria. The reason for having such a large heart is believed to provide oxygen for the bacteria. The shell of the lava snail is made up of 3 layers. The middle layer is organic, proteinous, and very tough. It's so tough that scientists are trying to learn how to use its features to create military-grade protective gear. Unfortunately, in 2018, these snails were classified as endangered, since the vents they live on are targets for mineral mining. There are some precautions being taken to try to preserve the species. Hopefully conservation efforts make a difference in this, because these snails are really cool and we have a lot to learn from them, so I hope that their stay isn't so short. Alright, so now let's talk about some land snails. If you've been on my channel before, you probably know about carnivorous snails. There are species such as the rosy wolf snail, the glass snail, the assassin snail, but what snail is the largest carnivorous snail? Meet Powelliphanta. Like I said, these are the largest carnivorous snails in the world, the largest of which being Powelliphanta suburba prossorum. And this will be the snail species that I refer to throughout the rest of this part of the video. Not only are these guys the largest species of carnivorous snails, but they are also so rare to find in the wild that all of the footage we have of them eating is from captivity. These guys only inhabit New Zealand, typically in the moist native forests, and their greatest diversity is in the mountains of Northwest Nelson and Northwestland. These guys aren't just large snails, but they lay large, hard-shelled eggs that take months to hatch, which is super unusual for snails. Now, like I mentioned, they are carnivorous, so what do these large snails eat? They eat earthworms typically. They are also known to eat slugs. It is still a mystery of how they hunt down their food, but odds are it's probably the scent of the earthworm. At night, these snails head off, find an earthworm, and usually drag it out of its hole. From here, the snail grabs the earthworm with its mouth, and I can only describe how it eats by comparing it to us eating spaghetti. Unfortunately, these snails face a huge threat due to predation and habitat loss. There are laws making it illegal to kill or harm or hunt them, which is fantastic. And there's even a law that's been in place since 1982 to even protect these shells from collection, since the snails use them as a source of calcium. So the Powelliphanta is a large carnivorous snail that lays some weird eggs. But what if I told you there's another snail that matches the descriptions, but in a totally different way? Meet Eusphyra louisi, or more commonly known as the moon snail. They can be found along the coast of North America, from southern Alaska to southern California, and they are also found off the coast of Japan. They are well known for their large size, which is up to around 11 inches, and their voracious appetite for other mollusks, like their favorite food, the clam. Now, clams can be a pretty big feat for anything to try eating. It's just really hard to get their shells open, and usually it's not worth the energy that you would spend trying to get the food. Now, usually animals will try to open these to get their meal by crushing them, maybe dropping them from a high place, but these snails have another tactic in mind. These snails will use their foot to dig around in the sand to find a mollusk, and once they do find it, they engulf it in the foot. A gland on their proboscis secretes enzymes that help the radula drill a hole into the shell of said mollusk. The moon snail will then suck out the clam tissue from the shell over a period of days. Feeding on the clams results in an accumulation of poisons in the snail. This being said, wild-caught moon snails cannot be eaten by humans Now this means that wild moon snails cannot be consumed by humans since they can cause paralytic shellfish poisoning. The other weird thing about these snails is how they lay their eggs. The female covers her entire foot in a thick layer of sand that she cements together using her mucus. She lays millions of tiny eggs on top of the sand grains, and then sandwiches them in between another layer of sand. She then detaches herself from the mixture and leaves behind a molded sand sculpture in the shape of a shirt collar. After a few weeks, the eggs hatch and swim away after breaking out of the collar. After a few weeks, the eggs will hatch, break out of the collar, and simply swim away. Alright, so to end this top 5 list, I have a pretty impressive snail for you. These snails are large carnivores that eat live whole fish in one sitting, and can and has killed a human with its own unique venom. Meet Conus geographus, better known as the geography cone snail. The geography cone is one out of about 500 species of cone snails. It is native to and can be commonly found in the oceans of the Indo-Pacific region, and hunts small fish in the reefs that it lives in. Now I'm being completely serious whenever I talk about these snails because they are highly venomous. These are like the deadliest snails out there and need to be handled with extreme caution by trained professionals. So if you do ever come across these guys, please just do not engage, do not mess with it. And if you ever do get stung by one of these, seek medical attention immediately. All known cone snails do hunt with venom. Some simply sting their prey with venom and eat, some eat sleeping prey, and the geography snail is not any less horrifying. This snail finds its prey by using its siphon to smell its surroundings. Once a fish is found, the snail releases a venomous cocktail into the water, and when the venom passes through the fish's gills, the fish experiences a hypoglycemic shock. In other words, it stuns the fish. Once stunned, the snail fires a harpoon-like, venom-tipped tooth called a toxoglossum radula into its prey, and the prey gets pulled inside of the rostrum whole for ingestion. The interesting thing is, the geography cone uses insulin for this. Its own insulin. Other than the tulip cone snail, no other species of any life form on Earth that we know of uses its own biological insulin as a weapon. The harpoons are single-use only. The snail actually makes them and stores them in something called a radular sac. The snail will ultimately spit up any parts of its prey that it cannot digest. This includes its own used harpoon. The venom makeup and dose doesn't only rely on the species of cone snail, but also the individual and every shot, meaning that there is a different and unique combination in every single shot this snail takes. And studies have shown that they can even do this purposefully. They can change it based on the prey, or if they're trying to get away from a predator, it might be that kind of a combination. There are 500 components that it can use in its venom. Unfortunately for us, the amount of combinations make it nearly impossible to have an anti-venom for this species. So the treatment is pretty much just keeping the patient alive until the toxins wear off naturally. It can take anywhere between 5 to 8 hours to kill a healthy human, however, as little as 1 hour has been recorded. Medical care is a must if you want to survive a sting from the geographic cone snail. Hopefully it does ease your mind to know that most of these stings occur because people are picking up the cone snails or messing with them, so as long as you just try to keep your distance, if you're in the location they are known to live in, maybe keep your eye out and be careful, and just don't mess with them if you see them. Just be mindful if you visit their waters. But on the flip side, scientists hope to manipulate some of these components to better treat things like diabetes and to make better painkillers. While researching this, I did find a saying from Australians that is, if it's a cone, leave it alone. Alright guys, so that is pretty much it for you today. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm excited to make this into a series. Let me know if you have any interesting snails you want me to cover, and I'm building lists and I'm categorizing my lists, so hopefully this is a regular series if you guys enjoyed it. As always, don't forget to like this video for the algorithm, and as I mentioned, all of the links to the sources I used and the timestamps and stuff is in the description below. Links to my Instagram account, my art account, and my Facebook group are also in the description below if you want to go check that out. And of course, subscribe to this channel if you are into this kind of content or really any animal kind of content. I upload every single Saturday at noon Eastern Standard Time, but you can hit the bell if you don't want to remember that. And as always, I will see you guys next week. Bye.